We're live now. I'll share your screen like in a moment. So we're back. We had a wonderful presentation by Bilal. Bilal gave us an introduction to knowledge infrastructure, talking about the semantic layers, talking about taxonomies, ontologies, structured meaning, and then we had a brief discussion around the importance of knowledge sharing and verifying people are able to perform tasks without the assistance of AI. But not to intimidate anybody, we're dialing it back, and we're gonna have a presentation by Stratos talking about how to break into AI without feeling like an imposter. Um, this is I'm sharing your screen now, Stratos. This is an important presentation because whenever anybody comes in from the outside world, they feel like they need to have a PhD or a bachelor's in computer science, or they need to be hacking with pimples on their face since they were 15. But it's not that serious, and anybody can learn, and we're here to share knowledge. So the ball's in your court, Stratos.
Thank you, Joaquin, and hello everyone. Thank you for being here. It's always a pleasure to be speaking to one of Joaquin's events. So today, my talk is going to focus on breaking into AI without feeling that you are not good enough. And let's say if you want to keep one simple message from this presentation, it would be that maybe you are not starting from zero. Maybe many of your existing skills are already useful in AI, but you haven't translated them yet, so that you can use them in this field. So let's get going on the presentation. First of all, a couple of words about me so that you know where I'm coming from. So my background is on semantic web technologies. I did a PhD in that space 20 years ago, and I've been working with ontologies and knowledge graphs for about 10 years now, ever since I started my PhD. I have been fortunate enough to apply them in various domains: pharma, life sciences, cultural heritage, security, defense, food and beverage, consumer packaged goods, and most recently in the ad tech sector. In a nutshell, I'm not really interested in a specific vertical, as you can see from my experience so far. I'm mostly interested, though, in the recurring problem that we always have humans who understand the domain deeply, and we always have machines that are hungry for structure. So my job is to bridge those two as a knowledge engineer. And in my professional career, I have also done a major pivot several years ago when I transitioned from R&D and from academia to the industry. So I have also personally faced various concerns and agonies related to the impostor syndrome and the such. And many of the points in this presentation do encompass much of my personal experience. So let's get started. First of all, why does AI make people feel unprepared? Why? Because especially during the last few years, AI can feel largely intimidating, and I think that feeling gets more intense daily. Every week there is a new tool, a new model, a new framework, and when people read job descriptions, AI-related job descriptions, they often see various technologies or languages: Python, machine learning, cloud, LLMs, everything together, right? The job description tries to fit many different specialties together. So naturally, people, when they're looking at those job descriptions, they naturally compare themselves with profiles that are unrealistic, and they often think, I'm not ready for this. I cannot get into that domain. And what we tend to often forget is the fact that job descriptions are 99% not realistic, right? They describe the perfect person who maybe does not exist. And not to mention also the fact that AI and machine learning have wrongly become interchangeable terms lately. People often believe they must become ML experts in order to enter the AI sector. However, please keep in mind that machine learning is just one of the pillars of AI, and is indeed a very demanding field to enter, but it's not the only absolute prerequisite. But besides the technicalities, in my opinion, the actual real fear, and that's what I was also experiencing a few years ago, is the deeper concern that it's not only can I learn this tool or these techniques, It's not only about learning Python or using ChatGPT or whatever. The deeper question is, do I belong here? And this is where imposter syndrome actually starts lurking in. You start feeling that. We look at AI from the outside and we think that everybody who is already there in the game, they already understand everything. But that truth is very far from what's actually happening. In the field, in the AI field, most people are also largely learning, investigating, and trying to understand what's happening. And yeah, it's a very volatile field right now. What's also equally important is the fact that many people usually underestimate what they already bring to the table. But we need to remember that we are not starting from zero. Our existing skills may already be AI relevant, and I promise you that they most probably are. If you have experience in any of the following: research, design, engineering, education, business, vertical domain work, you already possess valuable skills that will be appreciated in respective AI related fields. So AI is not only about models or the new, let's say, LLM that will come along. It's more importantly about understanding problems and structuring knowledge and asking good questions and trying to explain decisions and justifying various operations. Those skills are not secondary at all. They have never been secondary. They are highly important and critical. So you have to remember that. But having said that, we also have to be clear that when we say that we're not starting from zero, we don't mean the opposite, that we already know everything. No, not at all. Of course, there are lots of things to learn when we enter a new domain and a new way of working. There will be tools, methods, approaches, most often terminologies or practices that are new to you, and you need to get familiarized with that. But that is something completely different from saying I do not belong here. A learning gap on its own, it's very normal, it's expected, and it's practical. You can work on it, and you can get better, and you can grow as a professional. But the dangerous part is when we try to transform a learning gap into an identity problem, and that becomes the imposter syndrome, right? We say I don't know this tool, so maybe I'm not an AI person. But this is not true. The better question is, what do I already bring? What do I need to learn next in order to become better in my job, in my position, and which gap is most important for the role that I want to get? But one other mistake, which is common that people usually make, is to think that AI has only one door. And again, I'm referring here to machine learning or ML in short. Breaking into AI does not mean you have to become a master ML researcher or expert. People think that if I'm not a machine learning engineer, I cannot work in AI. But this is not true, as we already said a few minutes earlier. AI systems need many different roles and many different kinds of skill sets. They need people who can deeply understand users, people who can understand data, knowledge, risks, ethics, business value, domain realities. So there are many, many doors into entering the AI field. And this slide, you can see a few items that are indicative. I could focus on a couple of examples. Let me start with knowledge engineering, which is actually a field that I am very familiarized with. In many AI projects, the problem is not to only train a model, the problem is also to organize knowledge in a way that machines and humans can both use it. So, for example, one common exercise we do is we try to distinguish the important concepts in a specific vertical domain. How are those concepts interconnected? What are the various rules or constraints or definitions that the respective AI system operating on top of those data should respect? So this is where ontologies, taxonomies, knowledge graphs, and various semantic models become useful. Hopefully you're familiar with some of those terms. And in a nutshell, a knowledge engineer helps an AI system understand the structure of a domain of discourse, and not only patterns in data, not only statistical patterns. We could also focus on other examples in the slide, maybe AI evaluation, for instance, which is pretty interesting. And what is it about? It's about when an AI system gives an answer, then someone must check if this answer is useful, correct, explainable, safe, and appropriate for the context. And this is not a technical task per se. It actually needs deep domain understanding, a way of thinking that is critical, judgment, a good judgment, right, on behalf of the expert. So, for example, an answer can be fluent but still wrong, and that's quite typical in pure LLM systems. It can be technically correct but maybe not useful for the user, or it can be accurate in general but risky in a specific business or social context. So, in a nutshell, AI work is much broader than model building. Model building is enough, is important, but the AI work is much broader than that. There are many roles for people who can structure knowledge, people who can evaluate outputs, who can understand users, and connect technical systems with real world needs. And this is why many people already have a possible entry point into the AI world, even if we do not see it yet. Let's not forget that in complex AI-powered systems, a lot of AI value happens somewhere between this flow. We start from people, move to knowledge, then to data, systems, and finally decisions. So let's take those steps one at a time. What is the people? It's the actual, let's say, experts in the field who define the real problems. They are the potential end users of the system. So they define the problems that need to be solved, the needs, the goals, and the context that the technology should eventually serve. Then comes the knowledge, human experience, and domain expertise. It must be organized into a way that the machine can understand. This is a set of concepts, rules, relationships, and explanations that can guide eventually the AI system. Data comes then, which is the knowledge that we discussed in the previous step. It can help us understand what kind of data is needed in order to address the problems that we identified in the previous steps, how this data should be structured, and what it actually means. Finally, systems, right? Data and knowledge are used to build tools, models, workflows, applications that can support downstream actual work. And the final step is the decisions. This is where the final value comes into play, and it appears when those systems help people make better decisions faster and safer and more informed. So in many AI projects, the most valuable person is not always the person who writes code or who writes the most code. Often it is the people who can translate things. They can translate the business needs into technical requirements. They can translate the domain knowledge into data models. They can translate the outputs of AI models into something humans can trust. And this translator role is very important and critical, and especially in large enterprises and real-world organizations. So your role may not be the deeply technical person. It may very well be the expert who translates between those worlds. Sometimes, and this is a tricky one, sometimes the problem is not really our experience, the experience we bring to the table, but the problem might be the language we use to describe it, which usually makes us think of ourselves in a different way, right? So the industry does not always understand academic or internal jargon, so we need to translate our experience. So, for example, I have some examples in this slide. Instead of saying I wrote papers or research papers, we could say I created structured evidence-based outputs. Instead of saying I taught or mentored, we could say that I explained complex ideas to audiences of various degrees of expertise. So this is more or less the same skill. We're not lying, but now we are reframing it and making it out easier for industry stakeholders to understand. And this way they can appreciate better the things that we bring to the table. But again, I will try to ground you a little bit by saying that the industry is different. It's not that it's not a different game at all. Things are different and they move faster and there is more pressure to deliver. That's true. We have to be working with product people, with various other roles like engineers, clients, managers, and usually those things happen under unclear priorities and under oftentimes strict deadlines. So a good idea is not enough. It must also work in practice, scale, be maintained, and create actual value for the enterprise. So this is a deep dive at first. It's difficult and challenging, but I assure you it's totally learnable. There are things that do not change when you switch to the industry. Uh, Many things are parameters that do not change. For instance, good reasoning is still highly valuable and appreciated. Clear communication is still valuable. Asking better questions and understanding context is still valuable. In AI, those things become even more important. Why? Because bad assumptions can scale very quickly. So if you already know how to think carefully, this is a strength and it's not a weakness. So let me present to you a proposal on how we can work towards entering the AI sector. What could we do in practice? So I'm proposing a practical transition plan of 5 steps. Step one, start by creating an inventory of your existing skills. List what you already know how to do and include technical as well as analytical, domain, communication, problem solving skills, right? All the things we discussed so far. Step number two, choose one AI related lane. Instead of trying to enter AI in general, which is quite intimidating, choose one focused area where your background can create value. Step number three, build one small public artifact. Create something visible, maybe an article, a demo, a portfolio case, a small model, something that shows evidence of your interest in the domain and ability. Fourth, translate your CV and your profile on respective LinkedIn and social media platforms, right? Rewrite your experience in a way that you use outcome-oriented language that helps industry people understand the value of your work. And finally, step five, and very important, talk to practitioners. Speak with people that are already in the game, already working in AI-related roles, so that you can learn what the field really needs, and you can start building confidence through real conversations. Here I focus on a little piece of evidence that that you can demonstrate, which was something to showcase. Right, we discussed about that in the previous slide. So don't start with generally with the question, how do I become an AI expert? Right, this question is too big, and as I said, it's intimidating and can create anxiety. Start with a smaller question: what is one small piece of evidence I can create about my skills? So as we said, it could be a short article or a small demo or an ontology or a tool review or whatever. The point is not to impress everyone. The point is to hone your skills and to make your direction visible. That's more important. When you create something which is small and public and people can access, you stop being just only a person who is interested in AI. You become a person who is already acting in the AI space and is already contributing to the respective community. And that's a very important step, and I cannot stress it enough. And here is let's say a trick. Many people wait to feel confident before they start, but usually I have seen that confidence comes after action, not before. I read somewhere the phrase that is the title of this slide: confidence comes from evidence. Apologies to the original source, I do not remember where I saw it. However, I think that it makes total sense. You build confidence by collecting evidence, right? You apply for one role, you publish one small article, you speak with one practitioner, you build a small project or a small model. Every little action, no matter how small, it gives you more evidence that you can move forward. And in a nutshell, what I have to stress is that confidence is not something you wait for, it's something you gradually build. And you build it by collecting evidence that you can personally act towards your goals. So, a final message from this presentation: which is simple, right? If you are planning to enter the AI industry, you are not starting from zero. I cannot repeat that enough times. The AI industry does not only need people who are deep coders or who build models. It also needs people who understand problems. They can structure knowledge. They can ask better questions. They can keep humans involved. This last part is also very critical. And many of you already have those skills already. So the next step is to recognize them, translate them, as we discussed, and start moving with more confidence. And finally, a call to action. I want to close with this little question. What skills do you already have that could help an AI team build something that is better, safer, clearer, or more useful? So maybe this kind of skill is a domain knowledge. Maybe it's a research discipline. Maybe it is design thinking. Maybe it is communication or the ability to see risks and assumptions. Do not dismiss these skills. Choose one of them and turn it into one small action this week already. And this is how confidence will start becoming real for you. And hopefully, you will be able to fight back the imposter syndrome that all of us suffer from to one degree or another. So that concludes my presentation, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Stratos. It's always a treat to hear from you, share your knowledge and experience. Something I know that you've done in the past is you've contributed in academia, you've contributed in research and
Indeed.
industry. That's a special blend. Usually people do one or the other, or maybe two, but they don't do all three. And this has given you a level of empathy, also for guiding and mentoring graduate students and PhD students that are also transitioning from academia into industry. Are there any particular case studies or individual situations, without naming names, where
Mhm.
you've helped someone overcome that self-limiting belief of like, am I worthy? Are people going to be better than me, or do they expect me to be a hacker? So what are some of those things that you've seen that?
Indeed, that's true. Yeah, I have been serving as a mentor, let's say, not officially. Usually, it's in under unofficial uh, ways, but generally, I really enjoy speaking to younger people, young professionals, or graduates who want to enter the professional world, or even young researchers who have had enough with academia and research and they want to transition to the industry. Uh, a big, let's say, advantage is the fact that I have done the exact same pivot. It was around 10 years ago when I was a bit exhausted by a few, let's say, negative aspects of academia and research, and I decided to apply my skills in the industry. And that's where I noticed all those pros and cons that we discussed in this presentation. I noticed that there is a big difference between the two worlds. However, I noticed that there are several skills that you can take with you and you can transition them to the industry, as well as there are people who really appreciate the new mindset that you bring with you compared to the deeply technical colleagues, let's say, that are already in a certain team. So yeah, I do have several examples, thank God, of people, young professionals who have followed along a similar path. Actually, some of them are good friends now because I helped them do the transition, and since then we have been talking a lot and also meeting in person with several of them. So in essence, I can say that it's a journey that is challenging, but I think from what I see from the people that have been working with me, I see that it's very rewarding. I see that people feel very well when they fit into a new environment and they understand that actually those skills they can actively apply, and I think they feel quite confident about their skills from then on. And I believe that this, let's say, combined view that they bring to the table, I think this is also highly appreciated by their employers.
I appreciate you listing out the wide variety of different areas someone can contribute in, social and technical, with whatever level of gradients people have. Even in those jobs, there's a gradients of competencies and technical depth. So,
Indeed, yeah.
uh, you don't have to enter a high tech AI organization as a full technical engineer. You could start as a customer support or
Mhm.
client success manager or product manager, and slowly, as you engage, dive into deeper and deeper technical roles. But yeah, thank you very much for this presentation. Um, who should get in touch with you for what reasons? Um,
So yeah, generally I'm open to discussing with anyone who wishes to be speaking to me about any aspect of what we discussed today, or generally. Um, I'm fortunate enough to be having people approaching me, most typically on LinkedIn, with various kinds of questions, and I'm very happy if I can give my 2 cents based on my experience. I know that sometimes we, the more experienced, let's say, professionals, we try to be a bit, know it all, right? That we know everything and we need to guide you and you need to do that and that. Please, I apologize beforehand if I sound like that. I try just to offer my 2 cents of experience, and maybe someone hears, catches a phrase that I'm saying, or maybe one of the bullet points that I mentioned, and maybe they think it's useful for them to use it as ammunition in their next challenges professionally. So, if anybody wants to reach me regarding any of the topics we discussed, or anything that has to do with the transition from academia to industry, or any other AI related concerns, because it's a very volatile field right now. The landscape is very volatile, and generally, the society will be probably impacted by the new things that are coming from the AI. I don't know how it will be impacted, but I'm also, you know, monitoring that. So anybody can, get in touch with me on LinkedIn or via email, and I will be very happy to continue the conversation further.
thank you, Stratos. You're always appreciated, and you never give off the impression that you know it all. You're very humble,
Thank
and
you.
it's enjoyable to talk to you. So,
Thank you. Thank you very
appreciate
much,
it.
Joaquin. It's a pleasure to hear that.
All right. Well, we'll take a brief intermission, and then we'll get back to the next one. If you have any questions, please reach out to Stratos. That guy rocks. So, cheers.
Thank you.